one of America's most infamous criminals is somewhat kind of back in the news. We're talking here about Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, why is his name back in the news even though he's been dead for almost 30 years? Well, there is a new television series entitled Dahmer. It's a biographical crime drama limited series. It was created by Ryan Murphy, who also created American Horror Story. It's a 10-episode thing on Netflix, and I've watched it, and it's been pretty interesting. That's not to say that there haven't been some parts that have been absolutely, obviously, without saying, disturbing and crazy. So this is back in the news, and Netflix is under fire. And why is Netflix under fire? Well, let's see. They believe that, so people who are complaining about this show are saying that the media in Hollywood is romanticizing Jeffrey Dahmer. According to Fandom Wire, how Netflix's Jeffrey Dahmer story proves Hollywood can't get over romanticizing real-life psychopathic serial killers. Let's see. Hollywood is just another business. We know that. But business in the 21st century comes with social responsibility. The entertainment industry has a deep influence on culture and is therefore quite consequential. This is why artistic freedom has its limits. I can kind of agree with that to some degree. Here's what we get into. Netflix's new show, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, based on the life and crimes of notorious serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, is making waves. However, the show follows a long-standing trend on the part of Hollywood of romanticizing serial killers. This is wrong in so many ways and needs to be called out and corrected. Dahmer, making a hero out of a monster. Sure, this show has great visuals and strong performances. However, the despicable serial killer is glamorized. The show depicts the disturbingly intelligent Jeffrey Dahmer in a romanticized way. What is unfortunately left in the foreground is the sad story of the victims and their families. The plight of the community where Dahmer lived and committed his crimes isn't highlighted enough. Neither is the tragic dimension of racism on the part of the police department. Instead, in the Netflix series, Dahmer is shown as a cool, confident killer that flawlessly tricks his victims. Shows such as these need to portray such serial killers in a responsible fashion, in a way where these monsters aren't glamorized, where they are depicted as the absolute worst of humanity and not as pseudo-heroes going about their exploits. Well, you know what? So let me pause right there. So here's the deal. There's been a lot of different TV shows, movies, documentaries that have kind of rehashed the history of a lot of infamous people, a lot of serial killers and serial rapists and people like that. You know, this is the first time that I've actually heard that a serial killer, by the way, he's more than just a serial killer. He was a serial rapist. Okay, the guy raped and killed and ate 17 people. Now, this is the first time I've ever heard that, people like this are being romanticized. I've never heard this. So did anybody believe that we romanticized John Wayne Gacy, who raped and killed 33 kids? They also did rehashed a lot of different TV shows and documentaries about Ted Bundy, who raped and killed 30 women. And then there was the Menendez brothers, who killed their parents. So, are those people being romanticized as well? So I don't know if I see it as romanticizing. Now, I know a lot of the people who are older than my generation, like people in my parents' generation, grandparents' generation, they obviously are old enough to remember when those things were going on. So Jeffrey Dahmer's span of crimes took place between the years of 1978 to 1991. Afterwards he was sent to life in prison with no parole, and he was killed in the prison. He died in 1994, and get that away. I don't see. I think what it is, and a lot of that generation keeps on saying, well, why do they keep rehashing this old stuff? Like, we've already seen it. We already know about it. I think what they're doing is they are basically just kind of slightly just giving the education to like the younger crowd who was not aware of some of these things, because this was before people that are younger than my generation, before they were born. I did see something interesting though. This was according to The Guardian. This article is entitled "Mother of Dahmer Victim Condemns Netflix Series." She says, "I don't see how they can do that." Shirley Hughes, mother of Tony Hughes, an aspiring model who was among more than a dozen men murdered, speaks out. The mother of Tony Hughes has condemned the recently Netflix series about the serial killer who took her son's life, saying she doesn't understand how the television show could be made. Shirley Hughes told The Guardian on Sunday that she hadn't seen all of Dahmer, the monster, the Dahmer story, which focuses on one of its 10 episodes of her son, who was deaf and just 31 years old at the time of his slaying in 1991, at the time of his death in 1991. Nonetheless, she concluded that, quote unquote, it didn't happen like that. I don't see how they can do that. I don't see how they can use our names and put stuff out like that out there. Now, at the age of 85, the still grieving mother joined a growing chorus of people whose relatives were murdered by Dahmer and who have mounted a loud backlash against Netflix's dramatization of his killing spree in Milwaukee. The hit series' main players, including creator Ryan Murphy and Dahmer actor Evan Peters, who was also an American Horror Story, have insisted that the shows strive to put the victims' stories and their families' trauma at the heart of the production. But the show, which also depicts how Dahmer got away with his killing spree for so long because authorities ignored the concerns of Black and other minority community members, has faced criticism for not consulting the families of the dead, of the deceased. Well, you know what? I think I can kind of understand that point. Now, I at this point, and I've been a person, and I've talked about this before, and, aside from the politics and the comedy and the entertainment and the other stuff that I talk about, one of the things I have gotten into was, true crime stories and reading up about infamous criminals and people like this. And listen, I can say that I may not empathize with that pain, but I can sympathize with it. And I'd say after this point, they probably don't need to do any more of stuff like this. I mean, most people at this point know who these people were. I mean, we know about Charles Manson, who had the Manson family, who had at least 9 people killed. We know about, like I said, we know about Dahmer, raped, killed, and ate 17 men and boys. Ted Bundy, raped and killed 30 women. John Wayne Gacy, raped and killed 33 kids. Haddon Clark, who had killed numerous people, who killed lots of kids, who killed animals, who killed adults. So, I mean, you know what? I didn't know that this was going to receive this type of backlash, and I can tell you right now, I don't believe that this show is going to continue. I think these episodes right here are already more than enough detail about the insane, sick person that Dahmer was. And anybody who has seen the show, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And to those of you who might be old enough to already remember the story as it was going on, I mean, I would say you're not really missing much. But hopefully a lot of this, they'll kind of put an end to this stuff pretty soon. So that's all I want to say about that. And yeah, Dahmer, he's gone now. He's been dead for 28 years. So that's pretty much that.